All right. But I guess I need to pin myself.
Good morning and welcome to Great Tree. But first, a statement about Dana. In Buddhism, when Zen practitioners share their understanding and teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of Dana-paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice Dana is to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment or expectation when an opportunity arises. Those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a Dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. And something we are working towards financially now is to set up things for Genjo Trey Williams's ordination. So if you'd like to donate to procuring his bowls, etc., please go to greattreetemple.org and donate to the practice fund. There's no gizmo for the practice fund on the choices that you have. So if you do donate, please send Tejo an email at tejo@gmail.com.
No, Tejo at greattreetemple.org.
Oh, that's it.
I'll put it into the chat.
Okay, thank you. And as I said, our original speaker couldn't make it this morning, so Reverend Tejo Munich will be speaking. Next weekend, we celebrate the 18th year of her founding Great Tree Zen Women's Temple, and she's been a priest for over 40 years, and she is a Dharma heir of Kadaguri Roshi. So I'll turn it over to you.
Just a second, I'm doing this.
You're doing a
Take
chat.
some more. You know, the speaker is actually over here. Let's see. Good morning. This was kind of short notice for me because Enrico was in the hospital, and so when I wrote to her about the title on Wednesday, she wrote back and said she really didn't expect this thing to happen, and so she had to cancel. So I quickly came up with the title. And I don't know why I came up with this title, because I hate this stepping off the top of 100-foot high pole. When I was a child, my father created a climbing apparatus for me in the backyard. And he made one of those things they have in parks that are like, they look like a sideways, a horizontal ladder, and people kind of go from one to the next one. And he built one of those in our backyard for me. Only I walked across the top of it. And when he realized that I had mastered that, he added about a 12-foot flagpole for me to shimmy up. And so the thing I walked across was about 6 feet off the ground, I guess, and the flagpole was about 12 feet. And when I get to the top of it, you know the feeling you feel when you're on a height? I would just immediately go back down. So when Kadaguri Roshi used to talk about stepping off the top of a 100-foot high pole, I would physically feel that experience. And I didn't want to hear about it. I never could understand what that meant. And so I really don't know why I gave around to that title this week. But some interesting things have happened in kind of looking into it. I haven't had a whole lot of time to look into it. And that is that, first of all, thank you. Before I even read anybody else's commentaries about it, I realized that it's that that thing I'm always talking about, that awakening is one step beyond resistance. I think putting it simply, I think that's really what it means to step off the top of a 100-foot high pole, something that you think you can't do. You have this resistance for whatever reason, and usually resistance in my case, I find, is based on some kind of fear of not succeeding in one way or another, or fear of not just not succeeding, but failing, which is really what I think happens if you do step off the top of a 100-foot high pole. And 18 feet, I was thinking, wow, that was only 18 feet high. Imagine how high a 100-foot high pole would be. That would be more than 5 times the height. So that was that was what I was anyway, that's what I was thinking about. 100 feet high. Wow, you know, that's a lot of resistance. If stepping off the top of a 100-foot high pole is just stepping beyond our resistance. And when I talk about stepping beyond our resistance, what I mean is something that I think we learn in this practice when we actually stay on the cushion for even one period of meditation, that there is a moment of not wanting to be there. There's always these moments of not wanting to be there, or something coming up that causes us to feel like things aren't working in our lives or something like that. And, you know, when we sit on the cushion, it's kind of a practice in staying with it. And staying with it requires a choice. I'm not going to get up and walk away. Maybe it's because there's other people in the room and you're too embarrassed. Or maybe it's just because you know that if you stay and look at something, everything opens up. So that was why I was thinking about it when I first gave Randall this title. And then I Googled it. And I just got something messaging that says. And I found an interesting article in the Lion's Roar about this, which I think is talking essentially about the same thing, but it's talking about it specifically more in terms of practice. And essentially what it's talking about is that, you know, when we come to this practice, just like when we do anything, we're seeking enlightenment, we're seeking something. And when we seek something, it's kind of a manifestation of dukkha in our lives. We want something to hold on to, right? This, when I first came to the practice, at first I thought I was going to experience immediate peace as soon as I sat down, which actually did not happen. And then after I was practicing for a while, I thought, wow, if I just keep at it, get there. I thought, this is interesting. One day I was walking into the Zen Center at Minnesota, and I noticed that I was thinking, I'm a good girl because I'm doing Zazen tonight. And so there's this sort of thing about like, if I get myself to Zazen, you know, I'm an okay person, or so if I just do this thing, everything is okay. And that there's nothing else that we have to do. And the same thing is true if you step off the top of 100-foot high pole, it's really letting go. You got to let go if you step off the top. And when you let go, everything is there. We aren't just caught in this one place. We're experiencing life fully. When I was thinking about this morning, I remember we swam in lakes in Minnesota. Nobody goes to swimming pools in Minnesota. They swim in lakes. And all the lakes have docks that you can swim out to. And the one that was closest to our house also had a high dive. I mean, a tower with a high dive. So you get to the dock, which was even a challenge for me to get to the dock. But I get to the dock, and then in addition to that, you could go up to the high dive. You could do the shorter dives, but you could go. And so, when we were teenagers, everyone was kind of like, I'm going to the high dive. And so not to be, the last one, I got up there. Still feeling in my body. It's like, hell no. And I turned around and went back down. It took me 2 or 3 times before I would actually go off. But when you go off, there's this moment of just being suspended in space, and you no longer can be scared. It's too late. And I think, when I think about that kind of 10 direction Dharma world that Buddhism talks about, that the world that we live in is not limited to what we understand. It goes infinitely in all directions. This is life. So you can't have any kind of definition of what it is. And that's the freedom that we feel when we actually let go. I was talking recently about how letting go is the same as bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is often translated as the way-seeking mind. And when we they come to this practice, or really any spiritual practice, what brings us to a spiritual is often some in our life, or some sort of sense of failure, or that our life isn't enough. And that experience itself is letting go. If we think things are enough, we're holding on to some perception of what life is. But when we recognize that we're only a small little piece of energy in a huge energy field beyond our perception, there's nothing that we're holding on to anymore. So this bodhicitta, this time of letting go, whether it's because of a failed relationship, or because you haven't succeeded in what you think you were supposed to do in life, or whatever crisis brings you to the practice. It's something that you had to let go of and experience that spaciousness. And spirituality is the go-to place for going beyond our understanding. And most of the time, what happens in a spiritual tradition is that, we start to define, and we start to behave in certain ways, are the way to behave. So even after we enter into a spiritual practice, we forget about that experience of spaciousness and what it is that brought us, and we start to grasp again at something. And I had told by someone at the Zen Center after I was ordained that I wasn't quiet enough to be a priest. And it's true that the Zen practice does attract extroverts, introverts. And I am not an introvert. So I thought about that for a while. And at first I felt bad. I'm not quiet enough. But one day I was sitting in the middle of the kitchen and I thought, well, there are benefits to being an extrovert. There are good things about them. So why don't I look at those and use it in and not just be trying to be something not that I'm not. Well, we do that, we do that to ourselves and we do that to each other. And, I'm always wondering, how can we create a Sangha that is not caught up in defining and trying to behave in ways that look like? How can we create a community that is constantly just exploring and just as Meredith and stuff Alexander technique, just be curious. Curiosity. And of course, I think the bottom line is that Zazen helps us to do that. So if we keep sitting as much as possible, we keep experiencing that breakthrough that happens every single time we sit, because there's always those moments of, oh, I'm doing it wrong, or oh, I'm thinking too much, or oh, I'm feeling sad, or oh, I'm moving too much. So to have this idea about what Zazen should be, and then to stay on the cushion long enough to see that that's just an idea. And we learn how to do that. But it's not 100%. That's the problem. So I'm going to read you what's in this. This is it. Yeah, this is it. And so this is the original story. Actually, the story comes from China, so this is a version of the story, and it's been translated, of course. Master Xi Shuang said, how will you step forward from the top of a 100-foot pole? Another eminent master of Ode, Xiang Sha, said, even though one is sitting on the top of a 100-foot pole, even though one who is sitting at the top of a 100-foot pole has entered realization, so in other words, we're climbing to get to the top, and that's the goal, right? It's not yet real. She must step forward from the top of the pole and manifest her whole body throughout the world in 10 directions. And here's the commentary. Many of us may find ourselves on a journey that feels in one way or another like a steep climb. With great energy over considerable time, we ascend stage by stage and take heart in our progress. Of course, Zen doesn't usually talk about as stage by stage, although probably that's what happens. Whatever it is in our work or personal goals or Buddhist practice, we are eager to measure our accomplishments. In Momon's The Gateless Gate, case 46, Master Thekiso says, from the top of a pole 100 feet high, how do you step forward? Another ancient master, Mumon, tells us, one sitting at the top of a pole, 100 feet high, even if he has attained it, has not yet been truly enlightened. He must step forward from the top of the pole 100 feet high and manifest his whole body in the 10 directions. Reaching the top of the pole could be seen as a metaphor for having achieved some insight into one's ultimate nature. We may have some major spiritual openings, often during retreats or periods of intensive practice, and gain some clarity and insight. But after the retreat ends, or when we encounter circumstances that trigger our emotional reactivity and bring forth our unresolved psychological issues and defenses. Should I read that again? But at some point after the retreat ends, or when we encounter circumstances that trigger our emotional reactivity and bring forth our unresolved psychological issues and defenses, we are likely to find that our realization has barely penetrated our conditioned personality. Conditioned means we have been conditioned to think in certain ways. This self we carry with us, this conditioned personality, with all of its habits and concerns and fears, I might say, remains mostly intact despite all of our progress. This marvelous koan reminds us that seeing into our own Buddha nature is not the ultimate goal of Buddhist practice. Seeing into our own Buddha nature is not the ultimate goal of Buddhist practice. It may be an experience along the way, but there isn't really any top to the pole. By climbing a mountain, you stay at the top. Not at 100 feet, or at 500, or at 10,000. Rather, our practice is a never-ending on the complete realization. This my experience, which is, we have to constantly be stepping off the top of the pole. We have to constantly be stepping into our discomfort and our and stepping away from that which we grasp to, even in spiritual practice, we grasp onto an idea of what it is, and we tell ourselves, I'm doing well, I'm doing well, I'm doing well. When I hear those words in my mind, I think, uh-oh. We live in an era and a society that is powerfully driven by goals and metrics to give us data on how we are doing. It is natural to apply the same kind of thinking to our spiritual growth and Buddhist practice. How far have I come? Have I completed this stage of my training? Am I there yet? Our practice becomes another accomplishment, some kind of enlightenment project. In his commentary, Mumon describes the shift in attention from the peace of nirvana to the infinity of suchness. The obvious essential equality of all phenomena when they are seen as just such. Now, suchness means things as they are, as it isness. Suchness, I don't know why it's called suchness. I think as it isness describes it a little bit better. Things as they are, and things as they are, we are part of. We are part of life. And if we think of ourselves as the one who has awakened, again, we're holding on to something, holding on to what is awakening. Awakening in one moment is not the same as awakening in the next moment. What if we're no longer concerned about completing some specific goal or reaching a particular height? What if we were concerned instead with manifesting the whole body in the 10 directions? This is the life centered not on my particular thing, on any particular thing, but on all things. This author says this is non-attachment. There is nothing for the no self to oppose. Now, no self doesn't mean we have to get rid of the self. It means there is no self to get rid of. That we're part of a bigger reality. And so whatever it is that we see as the self is just something that we've created in our mind. And we've done it for a reason. We've done it because we have to function in the world. And so we try to figure out what's the best way to do things. What's the best way to live? So in a relative sense, it's something that we have to do. But then we get to a certain point in our lives and we forget that we're the ones that created that perception of how things should be or how things are. And when we recognize that we created it, we realize we can step outside of that understanding. We can see life in a different way. So when we have this experience of no self, which happens when we sit a lot, there's two different things that we can do. We can either not accept that there is no self, which actually is a very uncomfortable feeling, because we like to think that we exist. And if we do that, we immediately grasp for something, we chase after something, we try to find something. The other is that we can recognize that experience as experience of infinite possibility. And that, in fact, is what happens when we recognize that our state of crisis or failure is just based on our understanding of what success is. But if we can recognize that, then the word failure doesn't have any meaning in it. It just means that we haven't succeeded in making something, creating something that we imagine. It means that we've succeeded in creating something else. And if we get stuck in this place of non-success or failure, then we can't see what's there. So it's very, very helpful to us in our lives to learn how to recognize how we hold on to a certain idea of how things should be, and therefore can't see how things are. And when I make this list, it reminds me of something that Dogen Zenji says. He said, when we try to grasp, there's nothing there. But when we open our hands, everything is there. And Shohaku translated a book by his teacher called Opening the Hand of Thought, which is based on that recognition that everything is there when we open our thinking. This is the Chinese version of the koan. I thought it was. It sounds a little different. Let's see. Make it a little bigger. Venerable Shifan said, So how do you step forward from the top of 100-foot pole? Also, a virtuous one of old said, a person for shelter sits on top of a 100-foot pole. Even if he is able to enter like that, it is not yet the real. He must step forward from the top of the 100-foot pole. The world of 10 directions manifests the complete body. So there's different translations of this, but they're all pointing to this, 10 direction Dharma world, to this infinite reality that we are part of and within, and are constantly interfacing with, even that which we cannot see. We can't see how that happens. We can see how it happens when we get into conversation with someone, or when we interact with things that we can see and touch and hear and smell and taste, feel. But we are interacting even on a more subtle level with the energy that we can't see. The energy that we can see, has a solid form. So we give it reality, but reality is not just what we experience with our senses. It's all of life seen and unseen. So anyway, that's my thoughts about it. Does anybody want to say anything? Do you have any thoughts about this? Can you get a screenshot?
Teja, can you say more about stepping out in the 10 directions? That's not exactly what you said, but.
No, it's just, all I was trying to talk about was letting go of that, adhering to a limited understanding of what life is,
Okay.
and seeing life as going, not just going infinitely in all directions, but as everything in between, everything beyond our perception. When you talk about infinity, it's beyond perception. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's kind of the same as ultimate reality, that concept.
Yeah. But not a concept of that ultimate reality, an experience of ultimate reality.
Okay.
AKA Zazen.
Thank you.
It's the ocean in which we swim.
So Tejo-san, I am in trouble because what you said today brings to mind that what I'm doing with my spiritual life is setting a goal of Jukai. That's my goal for now. And so now I have to re-examine how my spiritual life will process, because that is probably not the direction I need to be in for the future. I should not be doing that. I should need to be more broad about my thinking.
Well, it's really important to have goals. But the thing is, when we reach our goal, that if we think that that's it, that's a problem. But the goals themselves help us to to awaken, just your saying, oh, I see what I'm doing here, I see I'm trying to reach a goal, is, when I walked into the Zen Center and I said to myself, oh, wow, I mean, I saw myself thinking, I am a good girl because I'm doing Zazen, and when I'm not doing it, I am not, and kind of defining myself in that way. I thought, oh, I'm doing this for the wrong reason, I shouldn't be doing it. And then I thought, wait a minute, that's why I should be doing it. Because, we have to sort of see, okay, so what does Jukai represent to you? And you can think about that, but it won't be until you've done Jukai that you realize what it really is all about. And in my case, I remember my teacher saying to me about a month after I received the precepts and went through this whole thing, and it was just a kind of a crazy time for me. I had no idea what I was doing. But he said, something in you has shifted. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, since you received the precept, something changed. And I said, oh yeah, you're right. I hadn't really noticed it. But when he pointed it out, I knew that something changed, and I don't know what it was. So these are opportunities, to, anybody, I was looking at Trey is up over here. Because he was at the 5-day precept ceremony out in Los Angeles. And I'm sure that everyone there had at least one meltdown. Like, why am I here? This is so much bigger than me. I can't do this. This was stupid. Why did I want to, And myself, I had 2 meltdowns in one morning. Because I had to give a talk that day. But those meltdowns, that's when you really let go. And if you can not just get caught in that meltdown and say, I'm going home, which was, I thought about that. I'm quitting. But knowing, and yeah, you were there too, Phoebe. Did you have a meltdown?
Actually, no. Well, if I did, it was very quiet and private.
Yeah, right. I know. That's just it. And the thing is, I had major meltdowns myself, and I was all around giving this talk to 180 people, and most of which I didn't know. But, and, wanting to appear as wise. And at a certain point, I just said, okay, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to appear as wise no matter how hard I try, so I may as well just get up there and do the best I can, But Phoebe, she just, look at that.
What?
Phoebe, we just throw in this position. Could you give me more tea? But I'm sorry, I got lost in myself. But I also think, Phoebe, maybe these minor meltdowns that we have, because of Zazen, we don't consider them to be meltdowns, they're just momentary, like, oh, okay, just keep going, And that's the thing about being in a situation like that, is that you either move with the group or you leave. And you don't have any other choices in those situations. You just got to keep going or opt out. So I don't know where we are. Any thoughts? Any more thoughts?
I do.
Oh, you're on mute. Go for it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm on mute?
No, you're good.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to say something about that self-doubt and self-criticism. That's one of the things that we need to try to go of, because it can be an obstacle. Like in both cases you were talking about, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing it because my intentions aren't pure. Well, maybe you should be doing it, and maybe your intentions can't be pure, and maybe you just accept that and let it go. I just want to, my own experience, I became a Catholic as an adult, and I really learned very well all the Catholic guilt, that people talk about. And I got so preoccupied with myself. And this was even worse when I went to the Catholic monastery, where I thought I went there for God and for everyone else. And here I found myself focused in on me, whether this was right or that was right, whether I was doing the best at this or the best at that. And the rest was kind of forgotten. And that's partly why I left, because I developed this, what I would call sort of pathological introspection. It was not it was not helpful or healthy. And unfortunately for me, that environment was conducive to that. And so it was a very painful lesson, but to some extent, I kind of learned to not give so much weight to what I think about myself. I mean, like just move on, just keep going. That's all.
And thank you. And that the way we judge ourselves is also the way we judge others. So I always say, if I get my own shit together, it'll help everybody. If I can learn how to stop judging myself, it will help everyone around me.
Right.
Thank you very much. That was really right on. Thank you, Phoebe. Any other thoughts? There's a speaker in the room, so if anybody wants to talk to it. Microphone.
Well, I mean, I'll just say, yeah, I definitely had a meltdown after 5 days. And I did have all of those thoughts of like, what am I doing here? I can leave, I shouldn't leave, I need to leave. But, I was with the group and we were moving, and so I'd have to like, walk by all the people. I was like, I can't really leave. And that was so helpful. And then, right on the other side of that, staying and moving with the group and the Sangha was, it was exactly where I needed to be.
Right.
So I just relate to that a lot. And when you're talking about stepping off the pole and the high dive, I was reminded of climbing. And I used to climb a lot. And there was always this moment at the top of the climb where I didn't want to let go because I'd have to fall. And so I would hold on super tight and then just eventually just have to let go. And in that letting go and that falling, there was so much freedom in that. And then I would be caught. And it was so exhilarating and fun and joyful and free. And then I'd get to the top and do it all over, no matter how many times I remind myself that, oh yeah, there's freedom here when I let go. It's okay, I'm gonna be caught, and maybe I'm not, but it's out of my control. But every time, I don't know, I mean, hundreds of times I've done that. And yeah, every time I have that
Same
that
feeling.
same like
Exactly.
latching on,
Letting go is an ongoing process.
Yeah. Even though I'm like, it's gonna be fine. I've done this before.
All right. And that's a point too, we start to recognize, and I think Zazen helped us to do that, to recognize that there's something on the other side of the resistance, and it's freedom, and so we don't get into that, that introspection, that what do you call that? Pathological introspection, like how can I keep this? How can I hold on to this state that I've achieved, Pathological. I have to put that down in mind. Any other thoughts about this? Well, we've got 10 minutes if anybody has anything they want to. Yes.
Question. So in a couple of the quotes, it was mentioned the phrase was used, manifesting the body in all 10 directions, is like when you let go of or step off the pole, it's manifesting the body in all 10 directions. And I'm curious what you think that means or is meant, like when the body goes in all 10 directions, or sort of either metaphorically or literally, what is meant by that?
Maybe somebody else has thoughts about this, but do you have some thoughts about it? I mean, it's just the acknowledgement that this body is not separate.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so if reality is infinity in all directions, down, all directions. And I mean, if you, thinking in terms of directions kind of takes you going out, but actually it's all of that,
Mhm.
you know, and that we are part of that. So when we, from my perspective, when we manifest the body in all directions, it's just not being caught in our perception, but letting our experience experience the totality of life, that we're a part of that, and that we're not separate, we're not a separate unit.
Mm.
Somehow we're always interacting with all of life. Does that make sense?
Mhm. It makes me think about the pole metaphor as like we're climbing up the pole and we're so scared to let go because we're gonna hit the ground. But when we go in all the directions, we don't actually hit the ground.
Right.
Like we're supported by, because we're not who we think we are. So when we fully let go, there's no pain in hitting the ground because you kind of disperse in all the
Because
directions.
we know ground.
Well, that,
I don't know if that maybe wasn't so good. Well, I mean, I can't help but keep thinking about those of you who read Carlos Castaneda's about the Yaqui Indians, and Carlos, presumably, nobody knows if this is really true, but anyway, presumably he met this Yaqui Indian who was a sorcerer, and his name was Don Juan. That was the name of this Yaqui Indian. And this Yaqui Indian could manifest himself anywhere. I think that this is part of India, you know, kind of that somehow some of these saints can have learned how to energetically manifest themselves in various places. But anyway, in the last book of Carlos is learning from Don Juan about the ways of sorcerers. In the last book, I think there were 4 or 5 books, Don Juan just steps off a cliff, never to be seen again by Carlos. He said, okay, you learned everything you can. And I just remember that experience, that feeling of, yeah, that's like stepping off the top of a 100-foot high pole. But you know, the thing is that Don Juan somehow recognized that he wasn't going to hit the ground, you know, and that you know that he didn't, you know. You don't have to say, oh no, you know, because you know that he can energetically manifest himself anywhere, you know. That's beyond my understanding from Zen, you know, how to do that. But if you read like the autobiography of a yogi, he talks about that. The Indian yogis are able to do that kind of thing, you know.
You're showing your age a little, Tejo, by talking about,
Carlos Castaneda, yeah, definitely 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's an interesting
It
story.
It
Very
is.
interesting. Anybody else, any other thoughts? Thank you.
I too want to remember the pathological introspection. That was a great, great expression. I want to remember that one.
Yeah. Are we finished? Oh, we didn't chat at the beginning.
no, I do, sorry.
Okay. Now we will give back the merit, and I will do 3 vows. May the merit of this practice
May the merit of this practice
benefit all beings
benefit all beings
and bring peace.
and bring peace.
make the room